Thank you. Basic introduction, and
The rap was
man, we can't like do anything wrong now because you're gonna leave here just remembering that, which is perfect. No, but thanks for having us. Sophia is, I mean, obviously what she does here is fantastic, but she also treats our little ones with the utmost joy and love. And I know she can sing because I've heard her sing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" with my 2-year-old daughter. So, and I'm like, wait, she sounds like an angel. Like, it's very good. So again, we are going to talk about it's funny, we've never been tapped on the corruption piece before, in terms of like, hey, like, we're not the Madoffs or anything like that, but the corruption that is going to be kind of intertwined through our story. Again, stretch or not stretch, but like, again, you talk about the cancer journey, you're gonna hear about that. There's a corruption of, internal, my body, but then also too the internal corruption that people possess at times, and then speaking up against that. I think that's one of the political corruption. I think it also a lot of times stems from that. So I'm just gonna start. Kind of how I came to Boston for the first time. I was recruited to play football at Boston College. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I was an athlete, and Boston College wanted to give me a full scholarship to play football, to do a game, which I thought was pretty cool. So came up here, and I remember walking onto campus for the first time, and the natural overwhelmment that everyone feels when they leave home for the first time. They get on campus, and man, it's difficult, it's hard. And football was hard, but I started to find my rhythm, as people do. And then football became easier, school became easier, kind of found out who I was, right? I said, I feel comfortable with my identity. My identity a lot was wrapped up in my sport. I started to have more success on the football field. And by the end of my junior year, I was winning accolades, Defensive Player of the Year, first team All-American, was projected to go very high in the next year's NFL draft, and started feeling myself a little bit. Like I was like, I felt like a man, but I felt like the man. I was like, man, I'm pretty cool. And then like that, when you feel cool, like it's a good feeling, but it's pretty obvious, like when you think you're cool and you act like that, it's not that attractive. So, but either way, I know that retrospectively. In the moment, I didn't know, so I just acted like that. But I finished my junior year of football and had all these dreams. I dreamed of, I wrote a little book when I was probably Boston, my 4-year-old kid, son named Boston, actually. We'll get into all that at some other point, but like, I wrote a book when I was about his age, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a professional football player. Like, I didn't really actually think I was going to be a professional football player, but now there was that realization, okay, these dreams could all come true. Like, all I have to do is just do it now. And I get done that season, I go back home. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, as I said, and I was playing squash with my mom, and she's big into racket sports, so we were playing squash, and all of a sudden I could feel this pain in my leg, and it was a pain that stopped that squash game and then persisted throughout the rest of the time I was home. I went back up to school to BC to start my training again, and that pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and it would be erratic. It would be start out when I was working out, and then it would wake me up in the middle of the night, and I would go to the trainers and I would go try to figure out what was wrong, and no one could tell me exactly what was wrong. And so eventually it got so bad that I remember one night in particular, I was laying in bed just like screaming in pain. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't function, I can't sleep, I can't sit through classes, and I don't know if I'm going to use this as a dad, but he gave me this advice. He was like, that credit card that I gave you for emergencies, get a buddy, go down to the bar, and drink whiskey. Because cowboys did it in the movies, and help the pain go away. I said, do that for tonight. I did that. It worked. It worked really well. The next day, wasn't good. But that night I was like, oh man, I'm better. And it was weird. I felt like, okay, this whiskey made everything better. The next morning I wake up, everything's terrible. The pain's back in my leg, hungover, and just like that can't happen again. So ended up going back home, getting doctor's appointments, get a call from one of the doctors, the orthopedic surgeon that I had seen, and got an MRI of my leg, and said, hey Mark, are you with your parents? I said, yeah, I'm with my parents. Can you drive down to Pennsylvania Oncology Department? We have a doctor with your scan results waiting to see you. So I'm 21 years old, just finished my junior year of college, getting ready to go to the NFL, and someone just told me I need to go to the oncology department. And turned to my dad and again, I went to BC, I thought I was pretty smart, and I'm like, they can't be meaning what they're meaning. I turned to my dad, I was like, this cancer stuff, that's what oncology is, right? And he's like, yeah, we're gonna go down and see what they have to say. I'm sure it's okay. He tried to calm me down a little bit. So we drive down into Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Hospital, and we get called into the room and kind of paint the picture. There's 2 chairs over here underneath 2 windows, and I'm kind of where I'm sitting now on the examination table with the little piece of toilet paper that goes across the middle of it, which we bring our kids to the doctor's office now and they sit on and it breaks immediately. There's no way that keeps it sanitary. I think if 2020 taught us anything, is that piece of paper is not doing anything for us. But so the creatives in here, if you figure out another way, make some money. So anyway, so I'm sitting on the table, and then the door opens and the doctor walks in. And this one doctor's approaching me, the other one's putting my MRI images on the light board. And if anyone has gotten x-rays or MRIs done, the moment you see that picture, you're like, I went to med school, I know how to read this. You're analyzing it before they say anything to make sure it's okay. And I did not obviously do any of those things, but I could see that something was wrong. My entire left leg was white from my knee to my hip, and my right leg was dark without kind of a white line through it. It's like a bone. That's what a leg's supposed to look like. So the doctor said, Mark, the white part in this MRI is fluid, and a tumor is made up of about 95% fluid. You have a large tumor in your left femur, and we're about 95% sure it's cancerous. And I'm sitting there on that table with everything that I'd always wanted, right there, within arm's distance. And the doctor says, cancer. Now, I didn't have a lot of family experience with cancer. I had a friend whose mom had passed away from cancer, and I watched a movie about cancer, but so I was like, what is that? And I felt like I was just falling back in my chair, and no one was catching me. And the only thing that brought me back was my dad. His name's Sandy, and he has a big mustache like Tom Selleck. And so just to paint the picture, and he says to the doctor, he goes, Mark is a very good football player. When will he be able to play football again? My mom, Barb, smacked Sandy right in the chest. Was like, whack! What are you thinking about football for? I mean, that's a fair question for a mom to ask. But for me, that was the same question I had. That was my identity. Everything that I had as a man, just who I thought I was. Hey, I'm Mark Herzlich. I have a brother. I'm from Wayne, Pennsylvania, and I play football for Boston College. That was who I was. Doctor turned to my dad and said, I'm sorry, Mark will never play football again. The damage to his leg from the tumor and from the treatment is going to be so bad that if all goes well, meaning if he lives, he'll walk with a limp for the rest of his life. And that just I went black. Next thing I remember, getting out of the car in my driveway and going up to my room and just sitting there and thinking, why me? And Sat there for a couple hours, kind of contemplating, what did I do to deserve this type of thing, and then made a decision while I was in that room during those 2 hours that mindset was not going to get me anywhere. The only way I'd done anything in my life was to just start. And so I walked downstairs and I found my dad. It was kind of getting dark at this time. He's sitting in the kitchen and he saw me walk downstairs. And he walks over to me and I hugged him. And I said, Dad, I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to play football again. And he hugged me and he said 3 words that were like super important for me at that time. He said, let's do this. And what that did, I felt like this was my diagnosis, right? This was my issue. This was my problem. My dad comes in and says, look, we're making a team. We're doing this together. Let's do this. So we found best doctors we could. We found, the best physicians in the area, started treatments, did chemotherapy for 7 months, ended up doing radiation on my leg, 50 cycles of radiation, very aggressive treatment. Coming out the other side of it, we're finishing the last round of my radiation on September 1st, which was my birthday. Go back up to Boston College for the next semester. I still have some chemotherapy treatments, but I walk onto campus and little different than I left. I felt like I was the man. Now I walk back on campus and I'm like, ooh, everybody's looking at me because I'm the cancer kid. Like I'm the bald kid. And took an adjustment. Continued my treatments, and then Halloween comes around, a few months into school. I finish a whole treatment cycle, get back, I'm tired, my friends are like, let's go out, it's Halloween, Halloween's fun, we're gonna go out to a bar. I was like, I had chemo, they're like, toughen up. I was like, all right. Sometimes those are the friends you need around when you're down. So I dressed up as Mr. Clean, it's a great costume if you have cancer, and went out to the bar, to Who's on First, which is no longer there, by Fenway Park. And that is where I met a cowgirl named Danielle. It was a Halloween party, remember? She's not a real cowgirl. So I met Danielle there, and I got her number. And, guys in here, girls too, if you get a number, you can't, call right away. It's like you seem, a little bit desperate, So you waited my 30-minute allotted time and then blew up her phone the entire night. She didn't pick up at all. But then she finally picked up and I was like, hey, I know I don't want to bother you. I had a great time with you the other night. I want to take you out to dinner. Would that be nice? And she was like, oh, that actually would be nice. I was like, all right, meet me at the cafeteria. My dad reloaded my Eagle Bucks card. It's embarrassing to say now, but it got her there. So anyways, so we dated for a while, and then we get one night, we were bros kind of, and I was not trying to be bros, trying to be more than bros, but we found ourselves going on a walk. Sorry, Robin, that's Danielle's mom, right there. But we were going on walks and runs together and working out and talking about Modern Family and all this great stuff that I felt like we were should be dating, but we just said we're not kissing at all. And I was like, I want to kiss this girl. And then one night, she called me and she was like, hey, my roommates are out. Do you want to come over and watch a movie? I was like, bam, I'm in. This is gonna be no more bros. And so I go over and I'm thinking to myself on the way over. I'm like, oh, what kind of movie do I hope this is? I wasn't choosing the movie, right? So hopefully it's a rom-com. And so I can show my sensitive side, or a scary movie even, so I can comfort her or something like that. So we sit down, we go in the dorm room, and we sit down on the futon. This futon was in couch mode at this time, just so we all know, it's PG. And puts the movie in, the DVD in, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what it is. It's a blue screen with a white castle, and a little star goes over top of it. It's Monsters, Inc. I was like, we are bros. This is awesome. So anyways, we watched Monsters Inc. and it was a great movie. But then after Monsters Inc., she says, "Hey, I want to tell you something," and it's something that I haven't told anybody before, but I feel like I just want to tell you. She said, "I can't tell you to your face." So I said, "Okay." So we kind of turned like back to back, and she started telling me about her childhood, and she told me about the abuse that she faced in her home, the mental, the physical, the emotional abuse that she had at home. She told me about the hospital visits and the cries for help that fell on deaf ears. And she also told me about her amazingly strong mother. She told me about her sisters, and she turned back around to me and she said, "Do you think any less of me?" It's like that. It's like I couldn't think more of you. And I remember sitting there feeling so hurt that that's what she felt her story provoked. And sitting there, I felt, like I'm bald. Like I got no eyebrows. Like that's not a good look. And I did not feel like a man, right? I didn't know who I was. But sitting there and listening to this woman tell me who she was and feel safe doing that, like I left there, futon stayed couch mode, whole time. But I left there feeling more like a man than I could have ever felt with any football, with anything that I had thought being a man was all about. And so, that night changed my life, honestly. We ended up dating after that. We kissed eventually, which was awesome. But that's it. And then I finished my cancer treatments. I was able to come back and play football again at Boston College. Entered the next year's NFL draft where I was supposed to be drafted first round. I ended up being undrafted and signed with the New York Giants in 2011. Danielle was, during that year, she was in South Carolina for Army badass training. I don't know exactly what she was doing there, but protecting our country. And so that year was about 6th on the depth chart, start of the year, ended up starting for the New York Giants in my rookie year, and we won the Super Bowl. And like, what a crazy 2 years. And I remember the last play of that game, for those of you who are Patriots fans, if there are any in here, we beat the Patriots. And yes, I know, yes. And so at the end of the game, Tom Brady's got the ball. He throws his Hail Mary up. It's coming down. I'm on the sidelines, trying to look and see where the ball goes. The ball hits the ground. I see it roll on the ground, and everybody just takes off running on the field. And the confetti's coming down. It's so cool. And I'd forgotten that families come on the field after. You always see the families after the Super Bowl on the field. My dad, Sandy, he didn't forget about that, and he was first in line. I was I'm a rookie. I'm a backup linebacker. This guy was first, and so that mustache was just flying down the field right to me, and I saw him. And I started flying towards him. It was out of a movie, right? We were slow-mo towards each other, and then we embraced that midfield, and he again, it's so nice that he said these things because I can say it and be truthful. He hugged me and he whispered in my ear, he said, "We did it." And from when he said, "Let's do this," to when he said, "We did it," I completely changed as a person. I was a completely different person. And I was not the person that I had wanted to be before. And when you think about like the reason for things, right? You can go all into that and all that stuff. But I feel God puts certain people in your life to help pull out whatever you want to call it. The greed, the whatever it is that like I wanted to be a rich football player. Right? Like I wanted to just have it all about me. And then God put this broken yet strong woman in my life. And then I realized that I actually was the one who was broken. And I need to heal. And so like I'm gonna let Danielle speak now, but for me, there's always these opportunities in the shadows, in the corruption, in the darkness, that some light pours in from somewhere, and to be able to recognize that, that's the gift.
Great job.
Thanks.
Yeah, so obviously Mark kind of shared my story through his eyes. And so my part of the talk is going to be just to kind of try and give you all tools to be a really good advocate of these issues of domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault. So of course, like we can pull from what you just heard, Mark, with literally no advocate training, he did a lot of things really right in that moment, obviously. So when I shared my story, the biggest thing, I guess, well, first of all, let's talk about like these issues as a whole. All domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse can actually be changed by us. Like it's one of the only issues that we can actually fix. Like we can end in our lifetime. Like if we all come together and rid the world of this like corruption, because that's what this is, right? I mean, when we're talking about it, biblically, we're talking about sin. But you know, there's sin in the world, and there's people that make really bad decisions and do really bad things, but it's also because of what has been done to them, obviously. Like, you know, we talk about this all the time. Mark had something happen to him that not everyone in this room can fix, right? Like there's only some people in the world, thank God for them, that can cure cancer. We can give money, we can help, we can help survivors of cancer, we can come alongside them, we can put casseroles outside their door, we can run 5Ks, we can do all those things, but we can't actually fix the problem. Domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse is a completely different situation. We literally all can affect change that can end domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse in our lifetime. How do we do that? We do that by being good people. We do that by being good friends, sisters, brothers, husbands, wives, colleagues, coworkers, all of the things. We educate ourselves on what it means to be an advocate. First and foremost, we gain information. We have conversations with survivors of these issues and ask them, what do you need? How do you feel? We validate people when people share their stories with you. We validate them. We say, I'm so sorry that happened to you and it's not your fault. Sorry. Oh, yikes. Can you hear? Have I just been talking to myself the whole time? Okay. Yeah, I mean, and again, like I said, in that example of what Mark did, he did a lot of things very right with validation and asking questions and trying to understand, and also just like trying to like even with the team thing with his dad, like the let's do this, like when someone confides or shares their story with you in any regard, but I mean, especially when it comes to these issues, I mean, that like, let's do this, like mentality of like, how can I help you? How can I help you heal? What do you need from me? And also too, of course, on the other side of it is ensuring that you are, because of course, when people hear of some of these injustices, or when people, share some devastating, traumatic things that have happened to them in their lives, you're like, let's do something. Let's get justice. Let's, I can help you fix this. That's kind of like, as human beings, like that's a lot of times that's our first inkling, and it's actually wrong. And you want to ensure that you are taking the pace and you are taking the steps of the person who is sharing their story. So, like a good, really tangible way of doing that is like in all of my. So I was actually a victim advocate for the Army, so that's what I did. So I handled the sexual assault cases for the U.S. Army for the last half of my career. And in all of our training, like one of the best things I think, like I said, tangibly that I can leave you guys with is when you are in a situation where someone shares something of this gravity with you. Obviously, a lot of corruption and a lot of these issues is about feeling powerless, right? Like the victim of corruption feels powerless. So one of the best things that you can do as an advocate is help give some of that power back to the survivor. So what that looks like is, okay, first validation, I'm so sorry that happened to you, it was not your fault. Is there anything you would like to do about this? If the answer is yes, okay, well, what I can sit here with you, and I can be with you, and I can offer you, friendship. I could also drive you to the hospital to get a rape kit. What would you like to do? And by giving options, and especially, like I said, that goes back to the education piece, because you need to be educated in order to know, like, kind of what the next step is. But by providing options and choices for a survivor to then be able to make the decisions for themselves so that they can become empowered by their own decisions, is like astronomically helpful. Like I said, just education is obviously huge. Everyone says we're getting better with the language in our culture, but a lot of this is women's issues. This is not a woman's issue. If it was a women's issue, we would have already solved it by now, because women are upset over this. It's actually a men's issue, and we need men, and we need men as allies. We're not here to indict men, because actually. So if you flip the statistic on its head, so 1 in 3 women have been affected by some sort of sexual violence in their lifetime, or will be. If you flip that on their head, that means that 75% of women. That means that. 75% of men. Don't do it, right? Because it's
It's not like a 1-to-1, but.
Yeah.
For the idea, yeah.
So what I'm saying is a majority of men do not rape and beat women. It's actually a small percentage of men who do this. So as allies, men, we need you to step in and affect change on the 25% of men who are doing this.
Yeah, and not as much, not talking about like while it's happening, you usually step in, right? It's like, but just like the comments that are made, you don't just need to let those comments go, right? You just say, hey, like, that doesn't seem really that sensitive. Like, that doesn't seem like a great thing. But like, as a man, if you know those situations, you're doing something and someone says something misogynistic and you're just like, I'm just not going to say anything. Like, it'd just be awkward now. And then really you feel awkward later when you're at home, like, God, man, I just should have said something. Like, it wouldn't have been that hard. It's like, just say it. And I've been in that situation too. Like, we've done this. We've spoken about this for over 10 years, and like within that 10 years, like I've been at the checkout line at Target, and someone has said something to someone in front of me. I remember this at the cash register, and I didn't say anything. I was like, I remember for the rest of the day, I was like, I'm not letting that happen again. You know what I mean? So it's just like, men are like, we do what the group does a lot of times, right? Like, I think that some people are different, but like when you get a bunch of guys together, we do dumb stuff a lot of times because one guy has an idea to do something dumb and no one else is like, yeah, that's dumb, right? And that's just like serious. I mean, think about fraternities. Like, that's just what we do. We're dumb at times. But when one person's like, yeah, let's just not do that. Let's do something else. Then everybody's like, yeah, okay, that sounds better. Let's just do that. But just like, you got to be that one guy, right? And I think like that's one person. Yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of that call.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I don't even remember where I was going with that, but it's okay. It's okay. That was good.
Just calling men into the process.
Yeah. Yes. So, so we work with two organizations. We work with Joyful Heart Foundation, founded by Mariska Hargitay, Law and Order SVU. She's an incredible, powerful advocate for these issues. So, right now, Joyful Heart is working to end the rape kit backlog. We're like the leading organization in rape kit backlog work. We were like literally in Washington D.C. on Capitol Hill, like trying to change laws and legislation around the rape kit backlog right now. And then we also work for an organization called The Call to Men, and that is it's an upstream education-based organization that works to train men and boys on healthy and respectful manhood and what it actually means to be a man, and all of that. So we are. I'm only saying that because I invite you, if you want any more information in terms of what I'm saying, like how to actually be an advocate of these issues. Those are two organizations that you can go to that we believe so much in. Mark works for an international justice mission as well. It's an international organization that fights human trafficking, sex trafficking around the whole world. You know, some of the atrocities and talk about corruption that we face in the United States are incomparable to what is going on in the rest of the world. And so again, just growing and opening your eyes to some of the other injustices that are we don't see every day that are horrific. Again, another opportunity to kind of learn and grow. But yeah, I think are we good on time?
Probably done.
We probably don't have time for questions, but in our conversation, our first one, Danielle,
Yes.
When you were speaking to me as an individual, like
Yeah.
I have my experiences in trauma, and there was something you said to me that I would love for you to share with everyone else about kind of your healing and just healing in general, how it
Yeah.
just looks so different for other people, and like
Right.
seeking one kind of cookie cutter version of what justice looks like
Totally.
or what healing looks like isn't for everyone.
Right.
So, like, you speak to it.
Yes. So, I mean, Mark and I actually, we've discussed this at length just in our work and also just in general, like the idea of restorative justice and how justice is not defined the same in every situation and every circumstance. And the way that, I mean, even in my own family, for years, I have two sisters, so there's three of us, and then my mom, and even just the way that we have processed and healed from the thing that all of us had collectively been through has been immensely and completely different. My healing journey looks different than my sister's and my mom's, so that's why I don't share their stories, because they have a story of their own. What I wanted in terms of justice is completely different, and what happened to you, your actually definition and what you want out of justice to be served is completely different than my take on it. And I think that's what's so complicated about these issues, obviously, but it's also something that's so beautiful about these issues, is that justice and healing looks so incredibly different for every single person in the world. And I think collectively, when we come together and we bring all of those definitions together, and also obviously our whys and our stories behind us, I mean that's where change happens, because like Sophia's saying, there is not a if there was an easy fix to this, it would be fixed, so really just when you become an advocate of these issues, you have to bring your heart, and you have to bring your creativity, I didn't even mean to do that, but to this, and you have to really want to make change for sure. So that's all I got.
It's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.